How's it going, everybody? Vin here once again, and today we're going to be talking about the WWE Draft, Monday Night Raw for May 1st, 2023. Before we get into the actual show, I want to talk about the draft, just because of how many names there are. I wanted to do a video on Friday recapping SmackDown. I figured just to wait until Raw so we could talk about the draft in its entirety. So we're going to open up with who's on what brand, the total brands for both rosters on Raw and SmackDown before even getting into the show. So if you're not interested in that and getting my opinion on why some people are on certain shows and what each brand is going to have going forward, skip ahead a few minutes, but I felt like this is important to dive into right away. So we're going to talk about the men first. So over on SmackDown, we have the undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns, Edge, AJ Styles, Bobby Lashley, Jimmy and Jey Uso, Solo Sikoa, Rey Mysterio, the United States Champion Austin Theory, Sheamus, LA Knight, Ridge Holland, Bush, Karrion Kross, Montez Ford, Cameron Grimes, Santos Escobar, Joaquin Wilde, Cruz del Toro, Angelo Dawkins, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, Ashante Adonis, Top Dollar, Elton Prince, Kid Wilson, and Grayson Waller on SmackDown. So I know it's a lot of names to throw out at once, but really it feels like SmackDown is going to be the stable show. It just feels like there is a lot of groups there. You know, you have the Bloodline, you have LWO, you have Hit Row, the OC. It's just a lot of groups there. I like some of the call-ups that they did do, with like Cameron Grimes, for example. Pretty deadly as a tag team. I think that is a lot of fun. And because they don't have just generic Raw and SmackDown titles at this point, I don't know if they're going to unify them. But instead they have champions who float over. I think that is going to really help make the tag team division feel a lot more important. But I really like some of these call-ups. We haven't seen Cameron Grimes in a while, so having him there, I think that's going to be good. You have a mid-card scene, which obviously these rosters go into effect next week after Backlash, which is this Saturday. They also have a lot of star power. You know, you have Edge returning to SmackDown. You have, obviously, Roman Reigns. You have AJ Styles. You have Bobby Lashley. Guys who can fight on the top of the card. I do like the championship split between the U.S. title going to SmackDown as of right now. Obviously, again, it depends on how Backlash ends up. But you have the U.S. title on SmackDown. You have the Intercontinental title on Raw. They have a lot of difference there. You know, Raw feels like a workhorse type of show right now, and SmackDown feels like more of stars. And I feel like that's kind of going with the titles. To balance it out on Raw, we have Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, Shinsuke Nakamura, Matt Riddle, Bronson Reed, Ricochet, Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, Chad Gable, Otis, The Miz, the Intercontinental Champion Gunther, Giovanni Vinci, Ludwig Kaiser, Mansoor, Mace, Eric Ivar, Apollo Crews, Dexter Lumis, JD McDonough, Odyssey Jones, Jinder Mahal, Veer Mahan, Sangha, Johnny Gargano, Angel Garza, Humberto Carrillo, Akira Tozawa, and Riddick Moss. So a lot of names that obviously weren't pivotal at the end, but you have a very good Raw show, which you're going to fill 3 hours every week. You have a very good top of the card for that new WWE World Heavyweight title with guys like Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Shinsuke Nakamura can heat up, Matt Riddle. You also have Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. That would be two guys who could really do it. Ricochet, Braun Strowman, even a Damian Priest or Finn Balor, The Miz, Chad Gable, who I personally really love. You have a lot of guys who could really compete for that mid to upper card on Raw. And I think that's going to really be what Raw has established is, hey, we're going to have workers. Basically what SmackDown when the brand split came back in 2016, 2017. basically what that did is made SmackDown feel like the land of opportunity. Now it feels like Raw is kind of doing that. So it feels like Raw is going to be more of the future with very good wrestling. SmackDown is going to be more of a storyline based type of show with the factions kind of being the leading roles there. We're going to start with Raw's women's division because I think SmackDown has the better women's division, if we're going to be completely honest. So, one thing, the women's champions switched brands. So, we have the SmackDown Women's Champion right now on Raw, and vice versa on SmackDown. So, WWE, I hope they don't do a fucking title switch where they just hand over the belt, because they've done it twice. Doesn't feel like it feels like they could do it again. Instead, rename the titles. You don't have to do SmackDown and Raw Women's Champion. If you want, you could do a Women's World Heavyweight title and a Universal title, or a WWE Women's title, something like that, where it's just generic, where we don't have this issue every time, because otherwise we're not going to have drafting champions as a thing, because it feels really forced if you're doing it. One, you're adding another reign to the champions, because right now Rhea Ripley is the SmackDown Women's Champion, but if she's on Raw, and if she's going to just switch the titles, she gets a Raw Women's thing. So just very stupid on the lineage part, looking back at history. And also, I mean, having a generic SmackDown and Raw Women's title, tag team titles, just feels really weird to have it just brand generic like that. Now, on the Raw side right now, we have SmackDown Women's Champion Rhea Ripley. We have Becky Lynch, Trish Stratus, Ronda Rousey, Shayna Baszler. WWE Women's Tag Champions Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. NXT Women's Champion Indy Hartwell. Natalya, Candice LeRae, Chelsea Green, Sonya Deville, Zoe Stark, Valhalla, Katana Chance, Kaden Carter, Maxine Dupree, Nikki Cross, Dana Brooke, Piper Niven, Xia Li, Tegan Nox, and Emma. So there is a very good women's roster there that they should be able to really do well. They have a lot of depth there. But the star power is on the SmackDown side. As you have the Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, Asuka, Dakota Kai, Io Sky, Zelina Vega, Michin, NXT Tag Team Champions on the women's side, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. You have Shotzi, Lacey Evans, Scarlett, B-Fab, and Tamina. So you have the top part of the SmackDown Women's division going to shine in their top 6 names that I named there. But Raw has the depth, and it's going to be a lot more interesting. It just feels like, hey, we have Raw for 3 hours. We want to make that as interesting as possible. SmackDown's going to draw regardless. And with the bigger names, that's going to make the fans over there happy. So, another thing. The drafting of the women's NXT roster is where it really bothered me. You have Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, who are the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, but their competitors who they're fighting, actually tonight as I'm recording, are on Raw now. So, what's going to be with the NXT Tag Team Champions? I'm okay if they unify them and just say, hey, we're making the women's title, you could jump from Raw to SmackDown to NXT, as they originally were. As we had Bayley and Sasha Banks back when these titles first started, go to NXT, go to Raw, go to SmackDown, and wrestle whoever is there. You're building a brand up. It's going to really help having these people there. If an NXT team wins, you have them, hey, they're getting exposure on the main roster. I think that is very good. So, all in all, I'm okay with this draft. I think Raw, obviously, they had one plan of let's get the workhorses there. SmackDown, we're going to have the top names in the women's division. We're going to have a lot of faction warfare over on SmackDown in the men's side. So let's jump into it. One last thing on the actual draft part. I like having these people represent Raw and SmackDown at the draft. We had Booker T, JBL, guys like that. I would have loved it if we had one Raw if you are coming out to declare Raw's picks, have them have a very big affiliation with the Raw brand, and that for SmackDown as well. So if you had, for example, if Edge was naming a draft pick, you have him announce a SmackDown side because a large majority of his career was on SmackDown. And if you had somebody on Raw, for example, have somebody who had a majority of their career on Raw. If you were going to do a Road Dogg or that, I think JBL announcing a SmackDown would have been cool. Stuff like that. You know, Eric Bischoff announcing Raw since he was a Raw general manager back in the day. I think that would have been a cooler way to do it. Instead of just, yeah, you know, he's here, we're going to just have him announce it. I think that would have been a better way to do it. So, let's go into the show. Let's see. So we have Triple H kicks out the night. He announces the rules for the draft. Announces Brock Lesnar is officially a free agent. One thing that annoys me with WWE in the drafts, a free agent means they can sign with whoever they want. It does not mean they can jump from brand to brand. They cannot go to Raw one week, SmackDown the other. That is not what free agency means in sports and in draft status. So I just don't understand what that is. But they announced Brock Lesnar is going to be a free agent. He negotiated that earlier in the day. Triple H then introduces Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman goes to the ring, says Roman Reigns wants to address some issues. He says Roman is going to be on next week's SmackDown, so the May 12th episode. And he teases that Roman's going to be going after that world title eventually, as having 3 titles is better than having 2. Paul Heyman then makes fun of the freaking clowns in the back, referring to Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins comes out and interrupts Paul Heyman. He says Roman should be happy they're on different shows, as Rollins vows to win the WWE World title at Night of Champions on May 27th. Paul Heyman then takes a phone call as Rollins teases curb stomping Paul. But Solo Sikoa comes out to save him, and we set up Solo Sikoa versus Seth freaking Rollins, because you know how they love calling him that, for the main event tonight. Pretty harmless opening. I didn't really hate it. But, you know, you have Seth Rollins. He's feeling like a star. I like it. Having Solo Sikoa getting another match with an experienced guy like a Seth Rollins is going to only help him in the long run. Match I thought was okay at best. You know, it just felt like a nothing match. And unfortunately, it's how this division feels with the women's tag team division. Damage Control, which was Bayley and Dakota Kai, defeated Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. It was okay. I mean, the biggest thing is that a champion lost. The WWE Women's Tag Team Champions lose a match. I never am a fan of champions losing. I think that is one of the stupidest things you could do in a scripted show, is have the person or the people who are supposed to be at the top of the card all of a sudden, hey, we suck, we can't win a match. I think that is just stupid, unless you are progressing or telling a story with just, hey, they got beat. And it doesn't feel like WWE does that a lot, if at all. So now having them lose to Damage Control to get a match for the titles because they beat them is stupid. Just make a number one contender. And that's just something WWE has not done. Let me see footage of Adam Pearce finding Brock Lesnar and telling him and Cody both, hey, draft night tonight, don't get physical. One thing that irked me, the announcer, Kevin Patrick, I believe his name is, he mentioned that this is the first time since the night at the WrestleMania that Cody and Brock Lesnar are in the ring or in the same arena tonight. Not true. Or we're just gonna pretend like that whole Cody Rhodes wanting to fight but wasn't medically cleared segment didn't happen, because that did happen. I have memory of it. You guys have memory of it. Don't let them brush that off. That this is not the first time that they are in the same arena since the night after WrestleMania. I understand you want to pull that off because it was a shitty segment, but just you have to include it. One of the cooler presentations that I personally got excited to see. We had Booker T and Queen Sharmell announce the second round draft picks. But then we get another whatever tag team match. Braun Strowman and Ricochet defeat the Alpha Academy. It was quick. Ricochet hits a Hurricane Rana, a drop kick and enziguri. I really like this. It started off with Ricochet and Chad Gable. I think that is a really good Intercontinental title match. If you want to do that at the Gunther's reign, I think that would be something that could really be a lot of fun to watch. But Braun slams Otis, and then Braun tags Ricochet back in. Ricochet jumps onto Strowman's shoulders, hits a Swanton Bomb for the win. Again, I mean, if you're going to develop them as tag team, as a potential tag team challenger for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, I think this is the best way to do it. But Alpha Academy just feels like, hey, you're hitting a ceiling. We're not going to get you any higher than this. I don't know if we're going to tease a breakup with them or whatever, because they didn't tease that at all in the match, but it just felt like it was a lot worse than what we could have had. Felt like this match could have been a very good match, and we did not see it. Shawn Michaels and Adam Pearce come out to announce the third round draft picks, but Brock Lesnar interrupts them before they can announce any picks. Adam Pearce gets a bunch of security. Brock Lesnar is in the ring. He says, he doesn't say anything. Cody Rhodes comes out from behind him, pops him in the nose legitimately. As you could, if you've seen a picture of him, he has just a giant welt on his nose right about here. I thought that was pretty cool. He just got one shot. Lesnar rolls out of the ring, and security breaks them up. Ahead of their match over at Backlash on Saturday. So it's an interesting little build they have there. So it'll be cool to see how they go. Then we get the third round picks. Then we get Matt Riddle with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens accompanying him, taking on Jimmy Uso with Jay Uso ringside. These guys go back and forth to begin the match. Kevin Owens pretends to get hit in the face by a steel chair by Jay Uso. Referee throws him out. Very heelish move of the babyfaces there. Going to the end of the match, Jimmy exposes the top turnbuckle and tries to get Riddle into it, but Owens sends him face first while Zayn is distracting the referee. Riddle hits a ripcord knee and then a floating bro for the victory, so Matt Riddle wins, giving them the momentum essentially going into Backlash. We go back from commercial, and this is where I really thought the story was better for this match. We see Solo Sikoa and Paul Heyman in there. Jay comes in. He's very tense in the locker room, saying, "Hey, why wasn't Solo out there with us? Even up the odds." Instead, Paul says, the Tribal Chief wants him to be focused on his main event match tonight with Seth Rollins, and says, "We'll leave you alone just to cool down and have some time to yourself." So Jay is starting to get really frustrated with the bloodline. Feels like with this divide between the Usos and Heyman, Sikoa, and Reigns. And it feels like we're telling that story piece by piece. Then we get Eric Bischoff and RVD as special presenters for the fourth round. Then we get a Miz TV segment with guest Shinsuke Nakamura. The Miz tries to get Nakamura to team with him and calls him, call themselves Miz K Nakamura. Nakamura says the Miz has tiny balls, but he says it in Japanese. They try to fight. Nakamura hits a Kinshasa to the Miz. One, I really hope we don't get a Miz versus Nakamura feud, because Nakamura is just so much better than that. Two, it's good to see Nakamura actually in the ring. It feels like since 2023, essentially, we have not seen enough Shinsuke Nakamura. I think he's going to be a very credible person to be in that tournament for the WWE World Heavyweight title. I think after seeing what Raw has, you can have Riddle if you want to have Owens and Zayn in there, you have Rollins, McIntyre, Nakamura. There's a good field that you could produce out of these guys. Even Cody, I didn't even mention him. So that's 7 right there. I mean, you could fill up a bracket just to that. Then we get a squash match just to build up for the Backlash match. Almost defeats Anthony Alanis. Quickly, it's a big boot choke bomb for the pin. Not really interested in Omos, as he just really feels like a Great Khali 2.0. Just, hey, he's a big guy, and we're just going to develop him more for that. Then we get round 5 of the draft, as Road Dogg and Molly Holly are here to present them. After that, Judgment Day comes out for a town hall. They say that they're going to be on Raw. Both Ripley and Priest hype Backlash. Dom tries to speak, but he's getting booed out of the building. The LWO come out, and they say that... And Rey Mysterio grabs the mic. He says he's happy that the draft separated them, but they're going to handle their business tonight, as they have a match. It's a 6-man tag. It's Rhea Ripley, Dominic Mysterio, and Damian Priest for the Judgment Day, taking on the LWO in Rey Mysterio, Santos Escobar, and Zelina Vega. This match was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. I think this was the second best match on the show. But really, it's Mysterio set up for a 619. Balor takes the blow for Priest, and then Priest hits the South of Heaven chokeslam for the victory. So the Judgment Day get the win. You know, we're building up to Damian Priest versus Bad Bunny in a street fight. I think this is the best way to do it. But again, I mean, it's a good match, but really, what does it matter at the end of the day? Then we get Cody Rhodes getting interviewed backstage. He says Brock Lesnar's in his head, but he's going to finish his story. Then we get JBL and Teddy Long to announce round 6 of the draft. And we're already at the main event. So Seth Rollins versus Solo Sikoa. It felt like they did not give a lot of time to this match. I don't know if they just ran out of time or whatever. But Sikoa is unable to take down Seth Rollins after multiple spinning solos. Rollins begins to get the advantage. Paul Heyman gets on his cell phone outside. He ends up making a phone call. And the Usos come down, attacking Seth Rollins, leading to a disqualification. So, another cheap finish to end the show. Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn come down to even up the odds a bit. And the show rushes off the air very quickly. So it felt like they did not have a lot of time. As they brawled for about 5 seconds before it went off the air. And I believe Corey Graves even got cut off mid-sentence before the Raw went off the air. But that was Raw. I mean, obviously it's a lot of fun that we got the draft results. And we're going to see how the brands kind of go throughout the next year or so. Remember, SmackDown is not having the brand split effect yet. Instead, that is going to be essentially what the show has been, which is just a super show. And getting into Backlash, I mean, we have some good matches coming up, and I really like this card as it's shaped up in 6 matches or so. But Raw, I mean, you finish up a draft, and now let's start building up some stories. It feels like, you know, Rollins versus Sikoa. That's 2 guys that are going to be on different brands. Judgment Day and LWO, those are 2 groups that are on different brands. Looking at this, Riddle and Jimmy Uso, I mean, that's continuing just for Backlash, but that's 2 guys on different brands. Braun Strowman and Ricochet versus Alpha Academy, those 2 are Raw, so we can build up the tag team division there. And Damage Control versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, those are 2 different brands as well. So a lot of people who are going to be on Raw versus people who are going to be on SmackDown next week. It just feels like we could have had more Raw and Raw to develop what is going to be happening going forward. That's all I have for you guys today. Tell me what you guys thought of Monday Night Raw as a whole. I thought it was a decent show overall, but nothing to really get me too excited. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you have not already. I will see you guys for AEW on Wednesday.